When we talk about soil health, we typically ask the grower what their idea of soil health is. So we're looking at different foundations of healthy plants. We're looking at yield. We're looking at management changes, particularly. So really, we let the grower kind of define what soil health is.
Well, we know Illinois is known for its fertile soils, so today we are fortunate to have Mitchel Bush, the president and founder of Amplify Ag, with us to talk all things soil. How's it going today, Mitchell?
It's going great. It's going great. It's blue skies and sunny out, so can't complain.
Awesome. So, what we think about soil, some people call it dirt. We know there's a lot more value to it than dirt. The soil is very robust and a living organism. So, how do you define soil health? How do you talk about soil?
Well, I think soil health is kind of a broad definition that we try to compartmentalize. So when we talk about soil health, we typically ask the grower what their idea of soil health is. So we're looking at different foundations of healthy plants. We're looking at yield. We're looking at management changes, particularly. So really, we let the grower kind of define what soil health is. If you ask me, I can't give you a straight answer because I understand soil health as we want to make sure that we have a good fertile ground for a good crop to grow in. That would be my identification of it. But if you ask 30 different people what healthy soil means to them, you're going to get 30 different answers. So we tend to talk to the grower and talk to the farmer to understand what their idea of it is.
That's great. And I'm sure as we are hearing a lot of evolving things with carbon markets and all sorts of things out there, that definition definitely changes on more than just what do we have for potassium and phosphorus levels into, what are my carbon levels and how does all that work? So absolutely. As those things kind of have changed and evolved, like what are some of the challenges that your team sees at Amplify Ag?
So this fall in particular, we're in Illinois. It's dry. We got a little shot of rain yesterday, which today's the 23rd that we're talking about this, but yesterday it rained, but it really didn't do much for us. When we come into that drought season, we start seeing differentiations of values, particularly in pH, organic matter, some other things, nutrition within the soil. We're really not capturing the data that we need to see. So in reality, it's that it's not a challenge for us to physically do the work to go pull the sample, but the results delivery is a little bit skewed more often than what we've seen in the past.
So what would you advise? This year we kind of know what we're dealing with, but dry conditions can pop up throughout time. So if a farmer finds themselves in a situation where it is abnormally dry or we're, in a moderate drought right now, what would you advise them to do? Should they wait till spring? Do they wait until the following fall, knowing that spring and fall testing can kind of change in results? What do you recommend?
I recommend going towards springtime when it's particularly dry like it is this fall. There is a smaller window to get samples done in the springtime, but it is more beneficial for the grower to wait until the spring to get those taken care of.
Great. And how often do you recommend that a farmer go out and do sampling?
At minimum, we ask for farmers to work at every 2 years. We are actually working with a lot of growers today on a every year cycle at a 7-acre grid composite. What we find in doing that is it's really not a cost prohibitive thing. Really, you're only gaining about 50 to 75 cents per sample on a cost perspective. But what you're doing is you're getting yearly accurate results. It's just like when you go into the eye doctor, you have to get an eye exam before you get your prescription. That's kind of where we're at when we're looking at the soil is we want to make sure that we're doing yearly recommendations so that we're more exact where we're replacing our fertilizer inputs.
Great. And we kind of briefly talked about or brought it up a minute ago, but with the carbon markets, like what services does Amplify offer for somebody interested in carbon markets or what is even out there for that?
Absolutely. So with carbon, we really got into carbon just being a labor source for a lot of these companies that are out in the place. So we had the equipment and we had the manpower to kind of go behind the scenes and pull the course for these carbon companies. And what we then decided to do is dive deeper into the actual carbon markets and understand what's out there for folks. So, it's come a long way since what it was 6 years ago, where there was a carbon credit market out there, and really you couldn't gain access to it unless you were brand new into the carbon space or regenerative ag practices. Well, now there's a plethora of options. It's really based on what the grower's identification of what their goals and expectations are, and then meeting those with the programs around them.
So if a farmer's interested, you mentioned your company advocates for a 7-acre grid, and that's probably a 6-inch roughly core that you're pulling. So for a carbon score, what does that sampling look like?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different than a traditional nutrient sample. So we're doing about every 18 to 24 acres, depending on protocols. Different carbon programs have different protocols associated with them. So for the most part, every 18 acres, you're pulling a 1 meter core. So that's about 3 foot deep and about 2.5 inches around. So that's really, you're going on a broader scope of the acreage, but you're capturing more data by going into those deeper depths within the soil.
Great. And the last thing today I wanted to talk on, my sister has had both of her dogs genetically tested. There's 23andMe. Tell me about genetic testing. What does that mean when we're talking about this in agriculture?
So genetic testing has come a long way, just in the last 2 years. We first started using genetic testing to identify pests and pathogens. So your corn rootworms, your soybean cyst nematodes, your SDS pressures. Now we're unlocking a bunch of different things within the biology within the soil. So we're really looking at biological potential in that soil structure. So that's really the new thing that Amplify is focused on is how do we create a better biological environment? How do we increase microbial activity? How do we increase soil structure? How do we increase nitrogen fixation? We can all do that by using biologicals today. So really unlocking that genetic potential with that soil test to understand what your biological potential is in your soil. It's unlocking multiple doors for growers to think about things a little bit differently the way they have before.
Great. That sounds awesome. All right, now that we've gotten all the easy questions out of the way, it's time for part of the show where we get a little corny. So, not to be corny, but why did the microbes throw a party in healthy soil?
I couldn't answer that question.
They heard it was the root of all good times.
All right, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Well, thank you, Mitchell. This has been great. I hope, it was awesome hearing about your company and a little bit about soil health and always some great perspective on what farmers should be thinking about.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.